Hey everybody, AstartesGaming here, back with another look at Chronicles of Elyria. Today we're going to be taking a look at Design Journal number 5, which is going to cover families and family selection. I know that's not what it said at the end of Design Journal 4. It said it was going to cover permadeath more. I didn't write them, so it is what it is. But I'm glad because the family system is really interesting, and I think you guys will really like it. I find it very cool and unique compared to how other games have tried to handle things like this. And so without any further ado, let's go ahead and start reading through it. And as always, I'll give you guys my thoughts and opinions as we kind of reach the points where I have something to say. Okay. Families in Chronicles of Elyria serve many of the same purposes as guilds in other MMOs. There are still guilds in Chronicles of Elyria, by the way. There's varying different types of factions that you can create and join. There are guilds, there are like academies, there are others. But yeah, so families. They provide a small, supportive social structure with a sense of identity as players recognize themselves as being part of a family, a noble house, or a dynasty. They tie into the game's progress system by allowing you to pass resources you've gathered over a lifetime onto your heirs. And finally, they provide starting resources, residence, and a source of learning in the early part of the game. In this week's Design Journal, we're going to take a look at the next two views in character creation: family path and family selection, to see how you go about choosing, or not, the family that's right for you. To get started, let's make sure you have an understanding of the impact your choice of family has on your experience. So there's a screenshot here. We've already taken a look at this one, but I'll show it to you guys again for those of you who haven't seen the video where I showed all these off. We have the world right here, and obviously you can see there's little nodes on there. I don't know if you can see my mouse. So yeah, there's just like little nodes all over the map. It says Carpenter. And if you look over to the left on the bar, you can apply a child code. If you decide to have a child with someone, that child will spawn a child code. You can give that to whoever you like. So if you have a friend and you want to bring them into your family, you can give them that child code and they will become your child and join into your family. But you can see there's several filters: family type, time zones, how many hours per week you plan on playing, your experience level, whether you're new, experienced, or very experienced, what the purpose of that family is, whether they like to, play a little bit more rough and tumble and get out into the wilderness, or maybe just try to make some gold, maybe just hanging out and having fun, or getting very serious and immersed into the world. And then you can also sort by things like wealth, power, standing, occupations, dispositions, physical traits. And then you can see on the right where this family, I assume the family is called Carpenter, the surname being Carpenter, that is. Those are going to be the traits that the Carpenter family has. So they have 2 player parents. They are in the Pacific time zone. They are, expecting you to play about 10 hours a week or more. They're very welcoming to new players or experienced players, and they like to craft and make some money. The dynasty that they are part of has 4 to 10 families. Their particular family is in the 2 to 4 member range. Their wealth is below average, and their occupation is woodworking. They are between 5'8" and 6'2". So when you're creating your character, you would need to select a height within that range. Their hair is dark brown or auburn. You would need to choose one of those hair colors. Eyes brown, that's your only option, and skin olive or fair. So you have 2 choices there. The family you choose will determine your options for character creation. Not only statistically, but obviously visually. So let's go ahead and take a look at this. This will explain it in a little bit more depth. Families are vital to the land and kingdom management systems, as it is more often than not families that build up their land, form towns, and establish growing dynasties. Families that get powerful enough may become nobles and play the dance of dynasties, or like the Game of Thrones. The process of arranged marriages, intrigue, assassinations, lies, and manipulations necessary to work their way up in the governing system to become kings and queens. Yeah, that sounds exactly like Game of Thrones. That being said, the family you select has a huge impact on your social experience, and not just when interacting with other family members. Your choice of family and their social class impacts how other NPCs, OPCs, and players interact with you. The family you select will determine things like what type and how big your starting house is, and how much land your family has for farming, mining, breeding, and other land-based activities. Finally, there's a set of game mechanics tied directly to the family system. Alright, so let's see what some of those mechanics are. Oops, wrong tab. That's my video editing. I don't think you guys can see that anyways. In no particular order, family members on the same continent can send private messages to one another. Family members can always sense the family member has been slain and is spirit walking. Members can find their way to a family member's body. Family members help increase other lifespan by creating a reason to live. Line of succession, as well as items, naturally pass on to heirs when someone passes away. Family members automatically get keys to shared household resources and can access and process the land without breaking laws. Family members can always see through disguises. Family impacts fame, which affects how much spirit you lose when spirit walking. So as you can see, there's a lot of very real, tangible benefits to being part of a family, especially a powerful, or at least a very active family, because there are several ways that they can help you if you get into trouble. Say you get killed, they can come find your body and grab your stuff, or potentially help you survive it and come back and, you know, get your own stuff. Or for those of you just starting out, maybe you aren't really familiar with the game, and joining a family will give you access to not only some tutelage, but some starting resources that can make the transition a lot easier. But there are some drawbacks, as we kind of saw toward the end there. Family members can always see through disguises, so if you are a deviant character, that might not be ideal for you. And family impacts fame, so if you're part of a very famous family and you die, you're going to take a significantly higher spirit penalty than somebody who is not. Alright, so families and character creation. Your family selection, through the combination of nature and nurture, dictates many of your character starting attributes, such as your starting ability scores, starting skills, and the possible set of physical attributes your character can have. Of course, you have the ability to change and develop these things as you play, but it is your family that dictates your starting scores. So, as I was saying with the Carpenter family, their hair choices were dark brown or auburn, so if you decide to play as a member of that family, you are going to have to choose from those traits, and you're going to look like a member of that family. Now, if you don't like this, there is another option. We'll get into that later, and I'm sure the design journal will as well, so let's go ahead and continue reading, and I'll cover that when we come to it. So how does family selection work? Family selection in Chronicles of Elyria works on a filter system. We just kind of saw that in the screenshot. By default, the Soulborn engine offers a set of families for you to choose from based on your age, based on the age you selected for your character. However, if the engine feels there's too many people clustered in one region, no starter towns in Chronicles of Elyria, you will spawn all over the world. Although I thought it was saying that, and this isn't in a design journal, this was in one of the Q&As with Caspian. I think he said that they will sort of populate certain areas first and then spread it out, but there's no like designated starter town where everybody's going to start. Whether it's in one biome or like several biomes. If you choose to start in a snow biome, they're going to populate like one main city first, and then it'll spread out from there. But all of the biomes will have different starting cities. Not starting cities. Whatever. You know what I mean. Okay. So, if it feels there's too many people clustered in one region, no starter towns in Chronicles of Elyria, it may withhold families in that area seeking children and instead suggest another area of the map. While it's great to have a large selection of families, you may have specific requirements for the family you want to join. and they may have requirements, expectations for you. To help with the matchmaking process, the family selection screen includes a set of filters which will allow you to narrow in on a small set of families which you think will be a good fit for you. As you can see in Figure 1, family selection is currently divided up into 5 categories. These include general info, wealth, power, and standing, occupations, dispositions, and physical traits. So let's look at general info. Sorry, I wish I could have like the screenshot up for you guys to see while I read through this, but you can always refer back to it. It's on the website under the media tab. So the first filter category for family selection is general info. This section is dedicated to making sure you find a family with the same playstyle as you. It includes things like whether your family is made up of player characters, non-player characters, or a mix thereof. What time zone you're looking to play in. That's probably a really important one because you do, or at least I would assume you probably want to be playing the same time that your player character family members are playing. I mean, you don't necessarily have to. You would still reap some benefits from being in a family with them, but I would assume if you're going to join a family with somebody, you're probably going to want to play with them. How many hours per week you want to put in, and finally, what kind of player you are. This final criteria is divided up into how experienced you are in Chronicles of Elyria, as well as what you plan your main pastimes to be. This allows more hardcore families to filter out players new to Chronicles of Elyria who may require a bit more handholding, and also allows a family new to the game to find others to share in the learning experience. So that's pretty cool. I mean, I'm sure we'll see plenty of mixed families, but there will definitely be elitists as well who, you know, want just the best players to be in their family and they don't want anybody slowing them down. But I'm sure I mean, in my experience with MMOs, most guilds are more than happy to recruit new players and show them the ropes just because they want more players to work with and play with. And so if that requires a little bit of hand-holding at the beginning, I don't think most people mind. Depending on what information you provide here, it will change the families that are displayed to you. So you could, for example, just specify the time zone you want to play in and get back a list of families who are either in your time zone or active at the same time as you. Alright, and next we have wealth, power, and standing. The second filter category contains all the important information about about the family and its place in the world. This category includes things like the number of families in the dynasty, the number of characters in the dynasty, the wealth of the family, and its social class. Only interested in joining one of the top 5 most powerful houses, only want to be the child of a lord or a king, don't want to risk permadeath by being heir to the throne of Gondor, not a real kingdom, at least not in this game. This would be the category you're interested in. Also, if you don't want to join a family with a high amount of fame and take higher spirit penalties, this would also be worth considering looking into. Occupations, probably one of the more important choices for most people because the family occupations are going to influence your stats greatly, and so obviously there are a lot of people who are min-maxers, and this will matter quite a bit to them. Even if you're not a min-maxer, I imagine you'll probably want at least decent stats in the things that you plan to do. For example, if you're going to be somebody who's a soldier, you probably don't want to pick the family who's got the worst combat skills in the game. Maybe you do. I don't know. Characters begin with a set of skills based on their family. Intuitively, we all know we pick up the skills, knowledge, and habits of our parents. So if you were to create a blacksmith with this character, it might be a good idea to go here and select blacksmith as one of the occupations. This ensures one or both of your parents have a significant investment in the skills generally associated with blacksmith. Add more skills to the filter and you can be more specific about the type of character you're creating. So you don't have to just choose one, you can choose several, but obviously you're going to want it to kind of overlap some of the stats, otherwise you're just going to spread yourself too thin. Okay, so disposition. This is probably more important than it seems because I would assume most good players don't want to be part of a deviant family and vice versa, although it could make for some really interesting storylines, especially like a good character trying to redeem his family's name, or a a bad player using his noble family as cover for his misdeeds. So I guess there's some potential for interesting things there. But yeah, so you may or may not want to choose a family that matches your disposition. That's completely up to you. In addition to the skills we pick up from our parents, nature plays a role as well. Our disposition, that is, our tendencies toward physical, mental, and social development also comes from our parents. So if you know what you want to if you know you want to create a strong or willful character, come here to select those predisposition. This again will limit the families to only those available which would offer you such an outcome. Physical traits. This one's probably the most straightforward, I would assume. Oh, I think I scrolled a little bit too far, sorry. Here's where you can filter for specific characteristics such as gender, height, and hair, eye, or skin colors you want. Note that these, like most of the previous choices, are multiple select. So if you want to create a character with blue or green eyes, give those 2 a click. Now you'll limit your search to only those families which have children that could inherit green or blue eyes. So if you're the type of person who wants to look a specific way and you don't really care, maybe you're going to be like a farmer or something, and you decide that, you know what, I don't need to be the best farmer. I don't need to pick the family who's best at farming just to be a farmer. I would rather look the way I want to look. So you have one option, filtering by physical traits and just finding a family that looks the most like you want to look, or you have the option down here that we will take a look at right now. So what if I just don't want to be part of a family? What if I want to create my character completely from scratch? If you don't want to be part of a family, and there are a couple good reasons not to, you have some other options. First, as seen in Figure 2, you have the choice to be a ward of the state. A ward sacrifices the financial and social support system, which comes with a family, in exchange for additional character customization and more flexibility. Wards are able to select any gender and have a point distribution system that they can use to set starting skill values and character attributes. Beyond that, wards begin at age 12 rather than 15, and so have additional 12 days of adolescence in which they can further customize their character's skills and abilities. So in exchange for the increased flexibility, they lose more than just the social and financial support of their families. Wards have no right of inheritance, no ties to help bind them to the world if they spirit walk, and lack any close telepathic bonds that would allow them to communicate with a family member remotely. In truth, wards lead a lonelier and more isolated life in the beginning. Of course, they can always earn fame, recognition, and noble titles for themselves and begin their own dynasty. So, I, for one, really like the idea of starting out as a ward. I am typically more of a solo player when I play MMOs. Not always. I've been part of guilds and things like that, but I like playing through story stuff by myself. The story in this game is obviously going to be much more organic, and so you can't. I don't know that you can really like actively choose to do the story. Whereas like the big MMO for me that I always played was the Old Republic, at least until it went free to play. Where there you would actively choose to go on a story mission or a raid mission. Like you had to actually choose what you were going to do. In this game, you're going to be doing that a lot more organically. This story is going to happen around you, and you're just going to end up being part of it. You're not going to be like clicking a box saying I want to do this mission. So yeah, I like the idea of starting out alone and building my own thing. I also like being able to custom tailor my stats the way I want them, and having the extra 3 in-game years to further develop my stats and customize them a little bit further. And obviously being able to choose exactly what you look like to some degree, because you will still be slightly limited by the location that you start in. So where families in certain locations are going to have very specific traits, a ward in a certain location is going to have more broad traits, but you're still going to be limited to, for example, in a desert biome, we'll say the characters have a little bit darker skin, darker hair, darker eyes. you probably, if you're creating a ward in a a desert biome, you're probably not going to be able to choose like blue or green eyes and like white blonde hair, but you will have a little bit more leeway than somebody who's joining a family in a desert biome where they're only going to be able to choose black hair and like brown eyes. So that is the alternative to joining a family. And then we also have non-traditional characters, and this I've heard some mixed things about. I don't know if they're going to keep this in. I know there's been a lot of excitement about it, and a lot of people active in the community were hoping to be able to play as these. Excuse me. But I've heard that they may not continue with this idea. So, non-traditional characters, the choice of a ward isn't for everyone, and fortunately it isn't the only way to avoid starting the game as a 15-year-old. We have a little saying, every NPC has the potential to become a player. If you select a starting age over 18 years old on the birth date selection screen, you have the opportunity to start the game as a non-traditional character. Think of these as the opposite of wards. You have significantly less control over your character, as their look, name, skills, and abilities are all predetermined based on the life the NPC has lived up till then. However, up until then, I think is what they meant there. However, you can begin the game with an established business, as a reputable adventurer, or even as an existing nobleman. Note that you can change your name through legal means once you enter the game. So, it seems like a cool idea. I think one of the reasons why there have been talks of removing this is because it would be very immersion breaking for some character who's always been an NPC for as long as you've known them to suddenly become a player and start acting very, very differently and very out of character. And I would tend to agree with that. I think that once a character is that established, it feels kind of cheap for somebody to be able to jump into, something that they haven't built themselves. This NPC has done all this work, and then some player comes and takes advantage. I don't necessarily like that idea, and as I said, it would be very immersion breaking, I feel like. So if they do decide to remove that, I for one wouldn't be upset. I would tend to agree that it's probably not the most fair thing to have in the game. So we'll see what happens with that, obviously, but it is another option, at least for the time being. So can anyone join any family, or how does that work? But while we'll get into the requirements for creating children in a later design journal, I did want to spend a brief moment talking about what players can do with the children they create. When you create a child, you're given 3 options of what to do with the new NPC. The options are, close it off. It will manifest as an NPC child in the world after about a month, and only you can possess its body at a later date. If you decide later to open it up or share its child code, you can. So if you don't want some random player jumping into your child's body, probably best to do this. Open it up to the public. If you're looking to grow your family quickly and don't have enough people to do so, this may be the best option. So this is sort of like passive recruiting. You just kind of leave it open, and whoever jumps in that body, but hey, they're part of your family, and now you have another person to interact with. After the child reaches the age of 15, other players will be able to find your child in the family selection screen. Due to the way inheritance works, this option will likely be more commonly used for second and third children. So the ones you don't really care about. And remember, they'll only find your child if their search query matches the constraints you've placed on players you want in your family. So yes, you can kind of filter, you can reverse filter them. You can filter who's allowed to join your family, where they're filtering which family they want to join, and so hopefully you get a pretty decent match made between the 2 groups of filters. But obviously, things happen. So, I mean, it's up to you if you want to do that, but there's obviously some risks involved. And 3 is to share your child code. Every NPC in the game, children included, have a character code. If you share your child's code with a friend, then after the child reaches age 15, they'll be able to join your family as your child. This system also breaks an important barrier to entry on a server. Players can always join your server as your child if you share your child code with them, even if the server is closed for new players. This guarantees your friends will always be able to join your server with you if you've got room in your family for them. So what you could do is, say you have like 2 boys, you could give your friend the second child, and then you would eventually play the first child because he's your heir. and so you could be like brothers or something. But yeah, I find this family mechanic really, really interesting. Granted, I'm trying to kind of avoid it by going as a ward. I'm not 100% sold on that yet, but that has been my thoughts thus far. I really like being able to custom tailor everything about my character, or at least as much as this game will allow. And I don't know, I think it provides for a more interesting background, because I've always liked the Elder Scrolls games for, you know, starting you out as some nobody with no real backstory and kind of letting you fill in the blanks. And I feel like the Ward in this game sort of does that. If you start out as, you know, a landed family who's been blacksmiths forever, then we kind of know your backstory, and you could, you know, mess around with it a little bit, but there's not a whole lot of wiggle room there. So, what's next? Next week's Design Journal will complete our coverage on character creation, and we'll explore character customization, names, and regional traits. At that point, we'll have exhausted our coverage on pre-game mechanics, and future Design Journals will focus on what happens after your character enters the world. So, we'll have one more on character customization, which I find super interesting, but you guys are probably, well, I don't know, I mean, maybe you guys like character creation too. I think a lot of people do, but you guys might be a little bit more interested in what's going to happen in the game, and I know I am too. The Design Journals haven't covered every single topic that exists in the game yet. We're still waiting on a combat one, so I'm itching for that, but yeah, that will come at a later date. So for now, you guys can expect to see Design Journal number 6 in maybe a day or two. I'll try to get it up as soon as I can. I need to record it still, obviously, because I'm recording 5 right now. But yeah, I'll get on that as soon as I can, and we'll take a look at the rest of character creation, and then obviously I'll jump on 7 and on from there. But yeah, for now, let's just go ahead and call it. So as always, thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Please feel free to share my videos however you guys see fit, and I will see you guys back here for Design Journal number 6.